We will celebrate at restaurant. My mom said after my 17-year-old daughter spent all day cooking. My hand was shaking so hard I dropped the spatula twice before I even got to the stove. Behind me, through the thin wall between the kitchen and the dining room, I heard my mother's voice, low and pleased with herself, the way she sounded right before she said something designed to gut you. Let the girl play with her little pots. We're eating somewhere real tonight. I stood there with flour on my palms and my daughter's handwriting on a recipe card taped to the cabinet in front of me, and I thought, this is the night I stop pretending I don't see everything. My name is Renata Cole. I'm 44 years old and 17 years ago I took a $4,000 loan from a credit union and turned it into Cole & Company Catering, a company that today does $2.3 million a year in weddings, galas, and corporate events across 3 counties. I built it from a folding table in a church basement to a commercial kitchen with 14 employees on payroll. I also raised a daughter, Maddie, mostly alone after her father left when she was 4. Maddie is 17 now, a senior and the best cook I have ever trained, better than me at her age, better honestly than some of the line cooks I've hired. The people at risk in this story are my mother, Diane, 68, who I supported financially for 6 years after my father passed, and my younger brother, Trevor, 39, who had worked part-time in my business for the last 3 years doing what he called vendor relations. Between the two of them, by the time this story ends, I would discover they had taken $187,000 from me. Not borrowed. Taken. But it didn't start with money. It started with a Tuesday and a dinner in my daughter's hands. Maddie had been planning the dinner for 2 weeks. It was for my birthday, but really it was for her. She'd just gotten accepted early into a culinary program at a school upstate, and she wanted to cook the whole menu herself as a kind of graduation present to both of us. She'd spent 6 hours in my kitchen that day. Braised short ribs. A Parmesan risotto she stirred by hand for 45 minutes because she refused to use the cheater method. A lemon tart she'd practiced 3 times that week until the crust held. She wore my old apron, the one with the burn mark on the pocket, and she had flour in her hair and a smear of tomato paste on her jaw, and she was so proud. She kept coming to find me just to say, "Mom, taste this." Her hands cupped under a spoon so nothing would drip on the floor. At 6 o'clock, my mother and Trevor walked in. Diane was dressed for something else entirely. A silk blouse, her good earrings, a new handbag I didn't recognize. She looked at the table Maddie had set with our mismatched but careful dishes, looked at the food resting under foil on the counter, and said, without even glancing at Maddie, "Oh honey, we're not eating in. We already made a reservation at Vellucci's. Renata's birthday deserves a real restaurant." Trevor laughed, that short, contemptuous laugh he does, and added, "Yeah, no offense kid, but nobody wants hamburger helper for a birthday." Maddie's face did something I will never forget. It didn't crumble. It just went still, the way a person's face goes still when they're doing math on how much they matter to someone. I said we'd stay in. My mother picked up her purse anyway and said the line that changed everything. "We will celebrate at a restaurant. This is happening whether you like it or not, Renata." I went along that night. I smiled at Vellucci's. I let Maddie's short ribs go cold in the fridge. But something in me had shifted, and shifted permanently, because it wasn't really about dinner. My mother had been steering, overriding, and dismissing both of us for months, and I'd been too tired, too busy running a company, to look closely at why she suddenly had opinions about everything from my staffing to my schedule. So 2 days later, quietly I pulled the books. I found a vendor account under Diane's Event Rentals LLC that Trevor had set up 18 months earlier. Cole & Company had been paying it $4,200 a month for linen and tent services. Services we'd never used, because our actual linen vendor was a company called Belmore Textiles that I'd used for a decade. I confronted Trevor first, casually, over coffee so he wouldn't panic. "There's a payment code I don't recognize." "Diane's Event Rentals." He barely blinked. "Oh, that's a subcontracting arrangement, Ren. Mom's LLC bills us, then pays out to 3 different backup vendors on standby, in case Belmore ever falls through on a big weekend. It's basically insurance. Redundancy planning. Every serious catering operation does it. It's industry standard risk mitigation." Sounded plausible. It was engineered to sound plausible. I nodded, said that made sense, and thanked him for explaining it. I did not believe one word. I asked my bookkeeper, Priya, to quietly pull every invoice Diane's event rentals had ever submitted. There wasn't a single delivery record. Not one truck rental, not one tent, not one tablecloth. Just monthly invoices, always for a round number, always approved by. I checked the digital signature, Trevor, using an admin login I'd given him for scheduling, not for vendor approvals. $4,200 a month for 18 months. $75,600, sitting in an account with my mother's name on it. That Thursday I came back to the office early to grab a forgotten laptop charger and heard them in the break room. Not knowing I was in the building, Diane was laughing. She still thinks it's for redundancy. God, she's so busy playing chef she doesn't look at anything. Trevor said. As long as she keeps thinking Dad left us nothing and she owes us, we're fine. Milk it till the restaurant thing with the kids' little dinner. That was a nice touch, by the way. Reminds her who's actually classy in this family. I stood in the hallway with my hand over my mouth so they wouldn't hear me breathe. That line, the restaurant thing was a nice touch, told me the dinner hadn't been thoughtless. It had been a calculated humiliation, timed on purpose, the same week they knew I was reviewing quarterly statements, to keep me emotionally off balance and looking the other way. So I looked harder. I found a second shell account, DC Consulting Group, receiving $2,600 a month for brand strategy consulting. Again approved under Trevor's login, again with zero deliverables, invoices, or work product. Combined with the rental scheme, that was $111,600 more. Total exposure, $187,200 of my company's money, funneled to my mother and brother over roughly 2 years, hidden under a jargon they'd clearly rehearsed. I made a decision that week that I've never regretted. I decided to become, on the surface, exactly what they already believed me to be: too busy, too soft, too trusting to notice anything. I started slouching a little more at family dinners. I let my voice go thinner and more tired. I stopped correcting Trevor when he interrupted me in meetings. I even started asking Diane for advice on business decisions I'd already made, letting her feel like the architect of my company again, like she had in the early days when she loaned me nothing and reminded me of it constantly. Internally, I was doing something very different. If they think I'm not watching, they'll stop being careful. People who think they've won stop covering their tracks. I need them careless, not caught. I bought a small recorder, the size of a pin, and started carrying it to every family gathering. I told Priya to keep pulling records but to change nothing. No accounts frozen, no locks changed, nothing that would spook them. I wanted the full picture before I moved. I even let Maddie's short rib dinner become a running joke at family gatherings, the night the caterer's daughter couldn't compete with Vellucci's, and I laughed along with it every single time, while my daughter sat there getting smaller. I hated every second of it. But I told her privately the night I started the recorder, trust me for 6 weeks. I need them comfortable. She looked at me like she didn't fully understand, but she nodded. Okay, Mom. I built the trap around one document, a fake vendor renewal contract for Diane's event rentals that I had my lawyer draft, requiring Diane and Trevor to physically sign in front of a notary to continue services into next year at an increased rate of $5,000 a month. I told Trevor I wanted to lock in the good rate before my accountant reviewed contracts company-wide. The bait was the number. Greed always wants more. I scheduled the signing for the same week as a family dinner. My mother's birthday at my house, the two events 3 days apart, so both would still be fresh in their minds. I had a hidden camera installed in the bookshelf behind where Diane always sat to supervise family dinners, and I wired a second recorder into a flower centerpiece. The night before, I sat in my kitchen with my phone face down on the counter, watching the feed from my laptop upstairs after everyone had gone home from a small pre-birthday gathering, just to test the angle. I watched Trevor, thinking he was alone in my living room, pick up a stack of my catering contracts off the side table and photograph pages of them with his phone. My phone buzzed once under my palm. A calendar reminder for the actual dinner, 3 days out. I didn't move. I just watched him a while longer, memorizing exactly what he touched, And then I turned off the laptop and went to bed. The birthday dinner was at my house this time. I'd insisted gently, playing weak, telling Diane I was too swamped for a restaurant reservation this month. She agreed, visibly pleased, as if she'd won something. Maddie cooked again. I asked her to. Partly because she wanted to, partly because I wanted the same table, the same room, the same cast for the reversal. Halfway through dinner, with 12 people at the table including my aunt, 2 cousins, and a family friend, Diane lifted her wine glass and said, loud enough for the whole table, to Renata, who still can't run a business without her mother's guidance. Lucky for her. Some of us know what we're doing. Trevor snorted into his glass and added, yeah, and lucky the vendor contracts renew this week. Keeps things stable. He smiled at me like he was in on a private joke. I wasn't. I set down my fork. I did not raise my voice. Actually, I'm glad you brought up the vendor contracts, Trevor. I have a copy right here. I placed a manila folder on the table. This is Diane's Event Rentals LLC. 18 months of invoices. 0 deliveries. 0 linens. 0 tents. $75,600 in payments approved under your login. The table went silent. Diane's face didn't move, but her knuckles went white around her glass. And this, I continued, laying down a second page, is DC Consulting Group. $2,600 a month. No consulting reports, no strategy documents, no meetings on any calendar. $111,600 more. That's $187,200 of Cole and Company's money, over 2 years, from a company I built from a $4,000 loan while raising a daughter alone. Trevor started. Run, that's not. There's context, that's redundancy planning, it's industry Stan. I know what you told me it was, I said, still quiet. I have you saying it on a recording in my kitchen. I also have you photographing my active vendor contracts 3 nights ago. In my living room, when you thought no one was home. I turned to my mother. And I have you in the break room telling Trevor the restaurant dinner was a nice touch. That humiliating my daughter's cooking was strategy to keep me distracted. I picked up the recipe card, still taped, faded now, to my kitchen cabinet across the room. Maddie's short rib recipe, the one from that first ruined dinner. And I set it gently on the table between the folders like a closing exhibit. Then I took the fake renewal contract Trevor had signed 3 days earlier, the one requiring a notarized signature to lock in a rate increase. And I tore it slowly once down the middle and set the 2 halves on top of the folders. That contract was never real. It existed to get your signature on paper, in front of a notary, admitting you represent Diane's Event Rentals in an official capacity. My lawyer already has the notarized copy. My accountant already has the full forensic report. And 2 detectives from the Financial Crimes Unit are waiting outside. Because embezzlement of this size doesn't stay a family matter. The doorbell rang exactly on cue. Diane whispered, Renata, you wouldn't. I already did, I said. 3 weeks ago. I just waited until tonight to tell you. Within 6 weeks, the consequences arrived in order, each one sharper than the last. Trevor was charged with felony embezzlement and computer fraud for using his admin login to approve fraudulent vendor payments. He accepted a plea deal requiring $80,000 in restitution and 3 years of probation, and he lost his real estate license in an unrelated review that surfaced during the investigation. Diane was charged as a co-conspirator for operating the Shell LLC, used to receive stolen funds. She avoided jail time by agreeing to full restitution of her share, $107,200, paid through the forced sale of the house my father had left her, the house she'd once told me I didn't deserve to inherit. My aunt, who'd sat at that table in stunned silence, later admitted she'd suspected something for months but said nothing to keep the peace. I didn't forgive that easily, but I didn't punish her for it either. The 14 employees at Cole & Company, the line cooks, the servers, the delivery drivers who had nothing to do with any of this, got something different from me. I gave every one of them a retroactive bonus equal to 2% of the recovered funds, distributed the same week the restitution checks cleared, with a note that said simply, "You built this with me. Thank you for staying steady while I wasn't looking." 2 of them cried in the kitchen when they read it. 10 weeks later, on a night with sleet coming down sideways, there was a knock at my door. It was my mother. No coat that fit the weather, no umbrella, a small duffel bag at her feet, mascara run down from either the rain or the crying. I couldn't tell which, and honestly it didn't matter anymore. "Renata, please. I have nowhere else. I'm your mother." I stood in the doorway, warm light behind me, and I felt something I hadn't expected to feel. Calm. Not triumph. Just calm. "You are my mother," I said. "That's true. But you spent 2 years teaching me that love in this family came with an invoice. I paid it. I'm done paying it." I closed the door gently, the way you close a door on a room you're never going back into. Inside, Maddie was at the stove, 18 now, home from her first semester at the culinary program, making the same short rib recipe from that first ruined dinner. Except this time the kitchen smelled like celebration, not apology. My partner Daniel poured 2 glasses of wine and handed me one without a word. Just a look that said you did the right thing. And for the first time in 2 years, dinner at my table felt like exactly what it was supposed to be, mine. Here's what I learned. The people who mock what you built while eating at your table are telling you exactly who they are. Believe them the first time, not the 5th. Real love doesn't need to humiliate someone's cooking to feel important. And real strength sometimes looks like patience. Right up until it doesn't anymore. Would you have confronted them at that first dinner? Or waited and built the case like I did? If this story hit home, hit like, subscribe for more, and tell me in the comments what you would have done differently.